I'm up against, listen, I'm up against the 10 o'clock. So we gotta have to kick it into high gear. I can probably push it 5 extra minutes, but.
So how many minutes have we got?
15 if I get an email sent out here real quick.
That's fine.
See if I can be a couple minutes late.
That's fine.
Technology
Okay.
kind of did us in this morning.
Okay, so we lost 15, 20 minutes. Sorry about that, Luke.
Okay. Oh, it's not your fault. I don't know what happened. So let's see what we can get accomplished.
Okay, let me go. Okay, I'm sitting here today with Luke Baker from Brookside Laboratories, and he's the CEO. And we've been friends for nearly on 10 years. But Luke, in your opinion, I want to ask you a couple of questions. The most important one is in this change of agriculture. The one is all about soil health and the change in it. So how did the soil health analysis come about, and how does it actually differentiate from a normal soil analysis?
So that's a good question. I mean, it really started, Rick Haney started dabbling is what it amounted to. I mean, there was people before that, like Alan Franzluvers was a guy who played with respiration. And I mean, there's been plenty of soil microbiologists over the years that have, done things, but nobody's kind of like brought it mainstream. So Rick was probably the one who brought it mainstream. And really the biggest thing with it is carbon, looking at carbon respiration in that test. I mean, there is water extractable carbon and nitrogen as a part of that. But looking at respiration is probably the biggest difference in that, because you can pair that with any kind of nutrient analysis. Rick invented the H3A extraction. That is kind of part of the SO19 package that we offer. But I mean, that's not, unless a consultant has done the work themselves, that's not been necessarily calibrated to yields or new plant uptake or anything like that. None of that work has been done. Rick hasn't even done it. I think they've seen some relationships and things, but the work really hasn't been done like it needs to actually calibrate it. So it's really looking at respiration and stuff. And actually, if you look at the NRCS, USDA, and what they're recommending, the soil health methods that they will be recommending are water stable aggregates, total organic carbon, respiration, either 24-hour, 72-hour, 96-hour. And early reports have it, there's a relationship between 24-hour and like 72 or 96-hour and potential disease suppression. I don't know what the relationship is. Supposedly it's supposed to come out in a paper here. I'm guessing 2022. And then ACE protein, potassium, which is a nitrogen measurement, potassium permanganate oxidizable carbon, which is a carbon kind of food source measurement, and was the third, all enzymes, soil enzymes. So phosphatase, sulfatase, and then a carbon nitrogen two carbon and nitrogen cycling enzyme. So those are going to be the real kind of future of soil health testing.
It's quite exciting, but it also looks back at where Brookside started with William Albrecht before that. It's like they learned from somebody else, and it's always like there's information around in the table, and then somebody just brings it to the fore, which is always exciting.
Yeah, because most of these measurements aren't new. Like what I just rattled off, those have been around for decades. I mean, it's not new science by any means. It's just been brought to the forefront. I think Rick Haney is the one who pushed it to the forefront, because people have recognized that maybe not necessarily everything that he's doing is correct in that methodology. So that's what really pushed all the other scientists. Well, we've got all this stuff we know that works, so we're going to bring it to the forefront. Well, actually, I think that's kind of what happens. Kind of a how you say, pissing match.
Okay, so I'm bringing it closer to the producer, because this is our service to the producer. And so why is the carbon pool and its activity so essential for knowledge for the producer?
Well, I mean, because most nutrients all cycle through the carbon pool. I mean, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, I mean, all those nutrients, if you look at any kind of literature, there's a C to N to P to S ratio. And so those main nutrients all cycle through carbon. There's, carbon is key in water holding. Carbon is key is in managing our carbon dioxide footprint. It holds nutrients in soils. Again, I mentioned water holding capacity. It helps stabilize or basically bring the soil to an equilibrium. It holds it in a steady state. It buffers against any kind of change, like, radical changes. It's a benefit in drought. It's a benefit in wet. There's just a lot of things that helps warm the soils up quicker. It helps protect them from raindrops, which are like little tiny missiles that, land on the soil if it's bare. So there's just a lot of different things that it does. And that's why it's so important.
It's a great point, Luke. I always say we're farming with C to N ratio. It doesn't matter what your crop choice is. The crop choice, you got to learn how to manage that crop with your C to N and your management in there. So that brings me to the question. So does this method of analysis work for any farming activity? Is it as much as valid for fruit and vegetables as it is for cereals or even cattle? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I think it can work anywhere, honestly. We have our fruit guys out, our fruit guy out west. He has guys using mow and blow, where they're blowing everything back into the row of the trees and seeing benefits. With anything, there's always some trial and error with how to figure it out exactly. The thing that I always say is you don't want to go whole hog into anything. You need that. There's an experimentation period that you need to learn of what works best for you and your practices and what you have time for and what you can afford and all those types of things. One of the things, the mow and blow is a great idea, but you know what they had problems with and on damage on the trees? Mice.
Yeah.
So the mice go into that and they overwinter. That's what, it's shelter for them. So and I've seen that even in some of the ag fields around here. You plant corn into it and the voles get into it and eat the corn. And so you get poor. So it's just a matter of, starting small, learning from your mistakes, and then taking it mainstream once you figure out all the ins and outs for your whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. I think the goal is figuring out what are you trying to accomplish. And Larry Stoll, who's one of our consultants in the organization, I think said it best is what are you're doing it to affect the ecosystem service. And that's why you're doing it. So what is the ecosystem service that you're trying to affect? Is it profit? Is it carbon pool? Is it less nutrient supply? What are you trying to? I think that's the ultimate thing you got to ask yourself before you start into anything as far as soil quality goes. What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, you've been here in South Africa many times, so you understand the Stellenbosch side, the Worcester side, the Natal side, the Northern Cape side. So in each area, it's a different activity because a different cover crop is going to bring a different benefit and a different handling of it, management of it. I always say cover crop management. Yeah.
It's no different than here. You got the diversity of warm to cold to wet to dry, and everything in between. And it's the same thing. What works here won't work in the desert Southwest. And so you've got to, it all comes down to, and again, it comes down to what is your ultimate goal and how much money do you have to spend and how much are you willing to experiment and learn? Because I've seen a lot of people who take the time and do it on small acreages, actually get it and get it right. And it looks really fantastic. I've seen a lot of people who do it and go whole hog on it and miserably fail.
Yeah.
And I'm never doing that again type of deal.
I agree.
That's where you gotta be willing to experiment and go slow and take your time. And yes, you learn from other people, but you don't necessarily go do exactly what they do.
It actually pushes me into the next question. I asked, what stimulus do I need to accelerate in the right direction? And your point now of saying start small is actually the biggest point, which I'm seeing with clients of mine as well. Is just get it right first time in a trial and seeing the results and then expanding over the rest. But the successes
do a couple hectares or two.
Yeah. But successes that you have seen, what stimuli pushes you in the right direction in soil health the fastest, if you can add anything to that process?
I mean, I don't know if I have an answer to that, because I think that's different everywhere you go. I mean, in here, the first thing to start with, just to getting guys, is just no-till in general. That's that kind of the first step. The second one, the second one that's the biggest bang for the buck, is figuring out what cover crop rotations work. I mean, there are all kinds of bugs in a jug and this, that, and everything else, but those are all, it's all short-lived. It's a band-aid to any issue. I mean, there's nothing that you can go buy that's going to go change, because the reason being is because those microbes, that if you're putting there, if they aren't there, they're not there for a reason. So that means they're going to be short-lived and not stay there. You got to get them there. You've got to change the system, what the soil offers as far as food source goes, as far as shelter goes, you know, drainage, how quick air enters back into that's what's all affecting that. So the biggest bang for the buck is figuring out, okay, what cover crops can I, how can I affect my carbon pool, is essentially, and keep it at a new equilibrium. That's the key, because I can put all kinds of, you know, when you put a sugar in the soil, you're actually selecting for certain microorganisms, because some can utilize that better and more quickly than others, where others, they don't want that. They need cellulose or lignin or, you know, something like that.
That's such a great point, Luke, because that's the direction of research in this way, which ones are benefiting. And so we can learn a lot more from that. And I think that's the challenge which I really am excited in doing. Now, I want to give you some bragging rights. On my last question, I said, how did Brookside become so excellent and efficient in their service to do so many 77,000 of tests in a month, and have created that excellence in many labs over the world? But you've really pulled it off, and the expansion in the lab is visible. So I want to give you like a minute of like giving us a bit of bragging rights.
I honestly, I don't know. I mean, there's a great team of people here that, I mean, they're the ones who deserve all the credit for doing that, as far as, you know, being able to, you know, do 70,000 samples in a month. I mean, it takes organization, which I'm not good at. It takes, you know, a lot of oversight, which I'm not good at, because I'm not a micromanager. You know, so a lot of credit goes to them, and it's just a lot of practices were put in place over the years, as far as, you know, quality control and how we're going to build that in, and our systems, and how we capture that, and how we're looking at that on a daily basis, and you know, just the employees in general. I mean, we have some great people here. We have a lot of people who have degrees, and we got a great pipeline of people in this area where we're located. People who want to come back home. They grew up, they're hardworking. A lot of them came from farms, and are looking for a way to get back. So again, I think we've just been blessed, really. I mean, great leadership throughout the entire building here. Great leadership in the board of directors, and great leadership in the consultant network to you know, kind of get us to where we are today.
Well, that's one of the pluses I realize, and you've seen how we've used it for information, the consultant's information, asking a question, and you get a guy coming from a total different area and helping you with a macadamia or with a total different crop that we never expected. So I really appreciated being associated also with Brookside. And I thank you for our 15-20 minutes for this discussion, Luke. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully next time we can get the technology to work right away, and we can do it for a longer period of time. I apologize about that.
No, it's mine too. So
we can get something on the calendar again in, you know, a couple months, and do it again, and maybe be a little bit longer than just 15 minutes. So.
Okay. Will you send me the recording?
Yeah, I'll stop it now. So.